Hello, everybody, and welcome to Certified Life Coach Institute CLCI Live. Hello. We'll be missing Brooke this week. Unfortunately, she's out of town, but she will be back next week. The brand new series of lives. Before we begin, be sure to like, subscribe, getting tongue-tied. Like, subscribe, comment, and join us in the discussion as well. If you have questions you want to ask or things you want to contribute, be sure to ask in the comments and we'll get back to you. So this is it. We're wrapping up the ICF Code of Ethics.
Yay.
We've talked about sort of the changes and what has happened and the purpose of these ethics. We've gone over the definitions and the glossary. Now we go
That was a lot. It was a lot of terms we covered.
It was a lot. And they're going to be showing up all in these ethical standards. But now we're going to go into the actual standards that you're supposed to be held to as an ICF professional. And they come in 5 categories. They are 1, agreements for client and or sponsor engagement. 2, confidentiality and legal compliance. That's a new one. The legal compliance tidbit. 3, professional conduct and conflicts of interest. 4, commitment to delivering consistent value. And 5, professional integrity and accountability. Jerome, could you pull up the Code of Ethics for us so we can sort of go over these? Now, before we begin, we're not going to be reading these verbatim, every single one, because there's a lot. We'll kind of have a discussion about, each section as we're scanning it and sort of going into what it's about and what's expected of you. If you would like to read it all, read it on your own time. There's a lot of good information in there.
I'll put it in the chat.
Yes, if you can link into the chat as well.
Yeah, Jerome, just 1 second.
Whenever you are ready. And just to go over, how is this relevant to the ICF, Lisa? Like when we are thinking of applying to the ICF, are they looking at these in our coaching sessions, or is this something that's showing up in our exams?
Yes.
Gotcha. Understood.
So definitely the exam is talking about sponsorship and what the agreements look like and making sure they give scenario-based questions to apply, see if you can apply the knowledge base to it. That confidentiality, they ask questions into it, but they're also going to look for, breaches in your coaching session that you submit as well. So if you let's say you have a conflict of interest or something in that nature, where you are creating your own company that is just like the company that you are working as a coach with, that is a really strong conflict of interest. So they're going to look at those things. I mean, in a coaching session, are you going to notice those? Maybe not when you're viewing them, but as time goes by, if somebody complains, hey, that coach was gathering my information to start their own company, that's going to be the conflict of interest, and where, ICF jumps in. And
would it be safe to say for your performance evaluation, they're more so looking at core competencies, where when you're taking your exams, they're looking at Code of Ethics?
Yes. I mean, I would say yes, but I think it's all inclusive.
Yeah. So it's something you want to study if you're thinking of getting your credential.
100%.
If you want to scroll down,
yes,
Jerome, we're going to look at section 1. The agreements for client and or sponsor engagement. So this is essentially like not your session contract. This is the contract of your engagement with the person who's paying for your sessions. And this goes over the roles and responsibilities, the confidentiality agreements, financial agreements, all those technical aspects of the coaching engagement. And they go over everyone's right to terminate the coaching relationship at any point and for any reason, subject to the provisions in the agreement. This is like your basic stuff you should have,
Yeah.
right?
Just communicate. Make sure you're communicating with your sponsor / client, keeping all the roads open for full disclosures of things and what that means. Yeah.
Have
So
we
in this
ever?
one
Yeah,
in
go on.
particular,
Yeah.
the respect all parties' right to terminate the coaching relationship at any point.
Mhm.
I hear horror stories about coaches or people calling themselves coaches. Let's be honest, they're not probably trained or credentialed. It's fine, but they are taking people's money. And then when the person
Mhm.
wants out because they're not getting it's not what they thought, or they're not getting what they wanted, the the coach is literally telling them no, like,
No
that's
refund.
it. No, yeah. And so according to this, that would be unethical. And that's important to know.
Well, maybe. I think this is what it's getting at is that I am never forced to coach somebody, and nobody's forced to be coached by me.
Yeah.
With the refund thing, that's more so subject. That's like that last part, subject to the provisions of the agreement. If the provision
Okay.
of the agreement says that there's no
Mhm.
refunds or there's refunds, if you're
On unused
cancel,
coaching sessions.
yeah, or if you're canceling your session the last minute and you've booked my time, then there's no refunds. Like those are like specific provisions that are agreed upon before going into the coaching session. I don't think it's really
Okay.
necessarily unethical.
Okay, so it's all about the agreement. You gotta
Yes,
make sure it's in writing what
Mhm.
make
will be
sure both
refundable.
parties understand what's going on before you guys agree to continue this financial relationship.
And what you said, what the refund policy, if somebody
Yeah.
says there is no refund and a client still continues, that becomes a mediation point.
Yeah, and if you're a client and you don't like that policy, find a coach with a a more
Yeah,
flexible refund
Yeah.
policy.
for sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's one of those things that I mean, like even your bank, if you do a chargeback, will probably be on the side of the customer rather than yourself as a coach. So it might be a little bit better to be a little bit more flexible. But it just goes over, what is written down and actually verifiable. Section 2, confidentiality and legal compliance. There are some new ones in here, like that one that I have highlighted. Fulfill my ethical and legal obligations to my coaching clients, sponsors, colleagues, and to the public at large directly through any technology systems I may utilize, such as coaching tools, databases, platforms, software, artificial intelligence. So, this ties in, and I'm just going to briefly go over ICF's view of confidentiality. Is that pretty much everything is confidential unless it's public information or if it's known prior to the coaching engagement. Um, and including like records such as like names, contact information, email addresses, all that sort of stuff. And you have to do it in a way that is safe and encrypted or locked. Um, So that doesn't mean having notes just on your desk or on your desktop. It also means you have to look into where your specific region and country, how they handle customer information, and how long you can hold on to customer information before you have to delete it. I know Europe has more stringent laws on that than some of the states do. Um, what other things about confidentiality do you guys see here that might be important for the new coach to have in mind?
The new coach, the copyright laws, you know.
2.8.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that says comply with copyright laws and recognize and honor the contributions and intellectual property of others, only claiming ownership of my own material.
Yeah.
How? Yeah, how would that show up? Why would I need to worry about that?
Well,
Uh,
apparently there are people that will literally copy verbatim what someone else is saying online, and they'll just pass it off as their own.
Mhm.
Happens all the time.
In
Mhm.
what ways? Like if someone was a marriage coach and they said that I'm Anthony Lopez, the marriage coach, am I also allowed to call myself Lisa Fink, the marriage coach? Is that copyright?
Well, I think it's unethical. I don't know that it's
Or
copyright.
that you could get away with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say they're marriage coaches. Like, I don't think you can copyright an entire niche. What you do have to be aware of is trademarks, like
Yeah.
things that are actually trademarked and registered, in the United States. There might be things that are trademarked, like certified life coach or
Mhm.
master certified life coach.
Right.
That's us.
Yeah.
But other things, like for example, we give out for free, with permission from the owner, our tools that CLCI has developed for our coaches, and our coaches can use those tools, like I don't know, whatever is in the class prep in the textbooks. I can't remember what tools they are exactly, but we say that our students are allowed to use it as long as our watermark is in the bottom and it's attributed to us, and they don't claim ownership of it. And if they do that, they can use the tools. Um, so that's some of the information as well. And again, you want to just make sure you're not giving away or using your client's name or email or phone numbers in a way that they did not agree to. So don't sell your list of contacts to advertisers, because that would be unethical. What also I want to go over is not considered confidential is anything to do with illegal activity or something that is due to a valid order or subpoena. Um, that includes your personal notes as well as a life coach.
Mhm.
So if you are taking notes on your clients and they're very detailed notes, that could be subject to subpoena and be under review. Um, just something to keep in mind. Maybe take less notes. I don't know, or don't coach people who you think might get subpoenaed. That might be another thing, but that's really the confidentiality and legal compliance aspects. There's other things you need to consider when you're working with sponsors, like what is confidential between yourself and the client versus yourself, the client, and the sponsor themselves.
Mhm.
Because the sponsor might ask you without the client's permission, hey, what did you guys talk about in your session?
Or set up what you're supposed to be talking about in a
Yeah.
session. Like, this manager is either going to be fired or unless they shape up. And in that exchange, the sponsor doesn't want the coach to tell the employee. That gets confusing and convoluted when you do that kind of um, uh, interaction. I don't like that. I don't feel that's fair, and but many businesses, that's how they operate.
Yeah. So, and that's all, going back to section 1. That should be
Mhm.
what is confidential and what is not should be in the agreement for the
Mhm.
client and sponsor engagement.
Right.
It should be very clear to everyone involved what you can and can't share. And sometimes that might be more favorable to the sponsor than the client, but that's just the way the organization wants it. And if they're hiring a coach, they're going to hire a coach who will, go with what they want.
This
as
is
far
like
as-
a parent and child as well.
Mhm.
Right? What is confidential between the client and coach, which is the child, and what does the parent need to know?
Yeah. So make sure you build that out very thoroughly, so you always have something to reference. Now we go into the fun stuff: professional conduct and conflicts of interest. There's a lot of these in here. When you have multiple parties, and this goes back to the sponsor, it's really sponsors who throw a wrench in everything with your coach-client relationship. It's so straightforward when it's just you and the client, but as soon as there's a sponsor, it's just like everything's just run through a loop. But if you have multiple agreements and relationships, there is a potential conflict of interest, such as brainstorm with me here.
Yeah, such as the sponsor's paying for the client to be there to increase sales, getting a better sales performance, and the client says, I really want you to coach me on how to leave this job.
Mm-hmm. So that could be a conflict of interest.
Because that's not what the coach is hired for. The coach is hired to help the employee work on their sales.
So that's when like the goals are misaligned then. The client has a goal that is at odds with the goal of the sponsor.
In fact, that's a similar question is on the exam.
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Jen?
Yeah.
What about if I am the boss of my company or I'm the owner of my company and I also have my own coaching business and I make my employees pay for coaching with me on their performance?
Yeah, that would be very...
Yes, that's allowed, or yes, that's a conflict?
No, unethical.
Dang it.
Unethical.
Unethical.
No.
Okay. What if I wanted to coach my spouse?
You're not really coaching your spouse.
Would that be a conflict of interest, though? Am I a disinterested third party?
Yeah, I would say.
I mean,
yes and no in this, but it's not a coaching experience.
yeah, that one has an asterisk. That one doesn't really apply, I don't think.
Gotcha. It seems like a conflict of interest there. What if
better communication with your spouse and better interaction with your spouse, but is it truly a coaching session? No, you got...
It's probably not unethical, but it's just not coaching. What other conflicts of interest might show up?
Well, I mentioned one that, conflict of interest of companies earlier for the other example. Conflict of interest, for example, if I had couples and,
like if you were coaching a couple separately, like it wasn't a
Yeah.
group session between yourself, the coach, and the other two.
Yeah.
They were separated and they had different goals in mind.
For the relationship, and that's one of the things that I will discuss with them. I go, we may have individual session, but it's just like we're in a session all together. So keep in mind that we're not doing secrets.
What if hypothetically, maybe not me, let's say like Jerome was coaching someone and that person showed a romantic interest in Jerome.
Ooh,
is Jerome allowed?
That one.
I would never do this, but is Jerome allowed to date his clients?
That sounds very unethical.
That's a hard no.
Okay.
No.
I know you're saying no, but why is it unethical?
On so many levels, it is not an
power
equal
dynamic.
Yeah.
Okay.
The money exchange.
Okay, that's another. You're also not able to be an objective person anymore.
No.
What if they wanted to be my friend afterwards?
No.
What if I'm coaching someone and they're like, "Hey, let's just grab a beer after this. Let's hang out. Let's be buds. Let's play a game of catch."
There was plenty of clients that had I met them out and about, I could see that being a comfortable experience. But once they're clients, nada.
Yeah,
gotcha.
It's a slippery slope if you do that.
You're gonna have to cancel the coaching engagement at that point.
Yeah.
Well, I would say if you're in a coaching engagement, you don't go the other way. If you're already friends, again, it's like the significant other. If you're already friends, you don't really get into a coaching experience. It becomes a better communication and listening tactic, if you will, that assists. But an actual coaching engagement, that's not happening.
In 3.6, it says also you can't do that with the sponsors either. So if you're coaching a kid, don't date their parent.
Yeah, I would say
That-
that's true.
That might lead to awkward exchanges. There's also things to go over about being aware of your own biases and making sure you don't discriminate for really any reason: race, color, gender identity,
Mhm.
all the et ceteras. Be open. Just be open-minded as a coach. It doesn't help. It doesn't hurt to be more accepting, especially when people are paying for your services. Yeah, just don't be biased or discriminatory. It's pretty easy to do. Um, Understand that ICF professionals often serve in multiple professional roles, and it is my responsibility to disclose to the client when I'm acting in a capacity other than the role of an ICF professional.
Mm.
This one is very, very important.
Mhm.
I read a case study a long time ago about a therapist who was also a coach, and they were not disclosing or separating their services all that well. When they were doing therapy or when they were doing coaching or when they were supposed to be coaching, they were actually practicing therapy. Um, and I think vice
Going
versa.
the other way around is fine because there's lots of modalities
Yeah.
that therapists use that is practically very similar to what we're doing here. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing really wrong with if you are practicing therapy and you're a therapist and using coaching skills, perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
If you are a coach who's giving coaching services, do not practice therapy.
Mm-mm.
Don't do it.
Just refer out. It usually keeps the lines cleaner,
Mhm.
even though they say you can tell them what hat you're wearing. I
Mhm.
say refer out because that keeps the line of communication clear. It keeps what hat you're wearing clear. I just think it's a place where it can cause some chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then going over like where your, the last one, 3.8, disclosing the information of compensation and benefits that have been paid or received or be paid or received by referrals.
Yes.
Um,
So you have to disclose if the client, if you got money. I don't know why I can't find the words. If you got money for the client being referred to you, right?
Mhm.
mhm.
Or
Uh,
if you are being paid to run a program a certain way, but you're showing up as a coach, that's not acceptable either.
This also could be like paid sponsorships and things like that. Like if you are going to be in a partnership and you're sponsoring like a product or a platform or a book, disclose if this is a paid sponsorship or not. In some places that this is the law. You have to disclose this
We've had a
information.
couple people refer to someone they know, but did not disclose what was going on there with them getting a referral fee and actually who they were referring to, what kind of business it was. So it became very ugly.
Yeah. So make sure it's just transparency's sake, just be honest. And also, partner with places that are trustworthy as well.
Yeah.
So then going on to section 4, commitment to delivering consistent value. So you have to be aware of any power status differentials between yourself and the client, um, whether it's cultural, relational, psychological, or contextual issues. Like a very clear example is like if you're an adult and you're coaching, a child, that is very clear, power and status differential between them. And you need to be aware and thoughtful of what it's like to be in the kid's perspective who's, coaching with you. Um, they might, regard authority a certain way, something to keep in mind. You also want to recognize your personal limitations or circumstances that impair the coaching performance, and you will seek support and professional guidance when necessary. When would this show up?
I can tell you an example, and it's not a bad example in the sense of when I needed to do this. I was working with some military people, and while how I coached them did not have an impact on my coaching performance or professional relationship with them, but I would leave and I would feel emotional and not really know why. So I would go to the person that I needed to have a debriefing with, not to talk about the session per se, but about how I was feeling and investigate why I was feeling that way and what was the work I needed to do so I didn't feel that way.
This is like your personal support network.
Yeah.
What way could this come up where it's almost mandatory that you do this? Like from an ethical standpoint.
I would say biases. Any bias?
What about professional guidance?
What do
Like
you?
What do you mean?
So like if I'm encountering a client and my personal limitations and circumstances dictate that I can't provide them therapy.
Oh, yeah.
And I was going to say they might clearly need it, but it's not my place to diagnose. But it's a gray area where I'm unfamiliar, or I've read the DSM-5 and this is not covered. Like they're talking about depression or anxiety or other psychological or mental health related issues. It's my ethical duty to seek out support personnel or professional who can help them and point them in that direction.
Or just be really aware of what's beyond your scope of practice, and that terminology, to keep in mind, to utilize. Not that the client's got anything, just this is beyond my scope of practice. I have someone, and I would usually keep a list of different perspective referrals.
And it says at the end too, this may require suspending or terminating my coaching relationship. You might encounter someone that you can't coach. It's beyond your limitations or circumstances.
I also think that this applies to let's just say you were to have a death in your family that impacted you greatly and you were incapable of holding space based on the fact that you're grieving or something like that. Right? Yeah. Don't you think that that's part of it too?
I'm laughing not at what you're saying, but
Lisa thinks it's really funny.
I had an experience where I had no business in the coaching moment. I was not feeling well throughout the day, and by the last, it was a busy day. It was the 7th couple I worked with that day. On that last, I was really sick.
Yeah, Lisa, you were just physically sick. You weren't emotionally.
Physically sick. I should have gone home and canceled the session, and didn't realize until, of course, I was very sick that occurred. But
I had a new client. I had a new client when I was sick recently, and I had to move it because I literally could not show up for this person the way they paid for and deserved. And so,
it would be pretty unethical if you got your client sick because you decided to show up a session. So, I mean, you want to show up to 100%. You want to be 100% for your clients. I think you can get away with sometimes 80% or 90%. Like sometimes you just have to leave that stuff outside the door, hang it up outside. You're a professional in this space.
Oh, yeah. You're not going to always be
when you're no longer holding. Yeah. Then this is not to say that you have to be 100%. And if you're not 100%, then don't coach. That's not what they're saying here.
No, in your coaching session, you want to be 100%, but in your world life, stuff happens.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we want to remain alert to indications that there might be a shift in the value received from the coaching relationship and discuss this with the client. If appropriate, explore changes in the coaching relationship and or potential for different coach, professional, or resources. So your clients ideally will outgrow you as a coach.
That's a good thing.
I think that's the best case scenario, and the best way to end a coaching relationship is that they outgrow you, they are ready to move on, and so are you.
Yeah.
What would be the unethical version of this?
To try and keep them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To create any sort of codependent.
Dependency. Yeah.
Have we seen this ever in our real life practices or coaches we've encountered?
Well, not that I created the dependency. There was a first time client that I worked with, and they weren't getting the message that I couldn't work with them. And they were trying to drag me back into being dependent, not back in because I wasn't, it was the first session, but trying to drag me into being dependent with them or for them, codependent, and got mad when I didn't do it.
Yeah.
That was the only angle that I would say.
This can be, I think this can be especially difficult when the coach feels like they've got a financial obligation, to their bills or their business. And it can be hard to feel like you got to let go of the client. It could be so easy to even make the sales pitch be like, hey, I've got another 3-month package with a discount offer. And you're really only doing it because you just want to have more clients or to keep the clients you have. A more ideal way to go about that would be to have them leave a review or tell their friends about you, use word of mouth to help you find more clients. That would be more acceptable and an ethical way of going about it, not by continuing the coaching relationship.
Now, what if you make the offer and they're up for it, but you as a coach think they're probably good to go?
I would this is kind of one of those things where it's like what I think, and this is like what we talk about in our coaching sessions, like about their goals. What I think of as a coach might not be the truth. It might not be the case of what the client thinks. So I would explore with them what the value they want to receive from the coaching session.
Yeah.
If we talk about more goals that are, within my niche or new things to work on, then that might be, acceptable to continue. But if you're retreading the same ground over and over again, then the perceived value might start to drop, and it might be a better idea for them to seek a different coach or a different professional resource.
Now, what if they just like you as a general life coach and it's always evolving and you just happen to be a fit long term?
That's what I was going to add to that. I think that's okay because you're not going to be coaching with them like you have in the beginning. Usually in the beginning, when you get in a coaching engagement, you are going week to week. You can go month to month. You can go year to year. I had clients that would just come in every month just because they needed that ability to have that open dialogue without somebody cutting them off and having a conversation so they can complete their thoughts, to those that would come in just a once a year experience, just to connect, just to think about who they are and what they, because that out loud process is really beneficial. So I could see that being a benefit, but trying to keep them going on that commitment level of once a week, that just, when they're already ready to move on, doesn't seem fair to anyone. So having that conversation, what growth do they see from that continuation if they're really sharing that they'd like to go on, and what does that look like?
And that's the piece on perceived value. If there's a misalignment in perceived value, then maybe have a discussion with your client where if you yourself, the coach, don't think that this coaching is valuable, but they do, there might be some misalignment that needs to be gone over, or maybe some internal work yourself. Like, why don't you yourself think the coaching is valuable? If the client doesn't think it's valuable and you think it's valuable, then that's a different story. Just don't coach with them if they don't find it valuable.
Yeah.
If they don't find it valuable, then they're probably not paying for the coaching sessions anymore. But that's a different discussion. Next, we have professional integrity and accountability. So accurately identifying your coaching qualifications and working within the boundaries of your level of coaching competency, expertise, experience, training, certifications, and my ICF credential. So
So do not say you are ICF certified when you are certified through us, because that is inaccurate. That is an inaccurate
Mhm.
representation.
how should they accurately represent that?
You are a certified life coach through ICF accredited training. That is the most accurate way to say that.
Or you're taken ICF accredited training, or you've taken X amount of hours of ICF accredited training.
You've been
Or-
certified through ICF accredited training. Yeah.
Or just call yourself a master certified life coach. That also
If you've
works.
taken both classes, you can. You are
Yeah.
a master certified life coach when you take both classes with us, which is a title that is attractive for a lot of people.
How would I be going outside the boundaries of my competency or experience or training or certifications? Like, I know there's just straight up lying that's saying like I have an ACC or PCC or an MCC, and that's just not the case. I think not disclosing that information is also a little bit unethical. Like if you are just a coach and you don't have anything on your website regarding your training, I mean, I can't imagine why somebody would try to hide that. It's usually always in your benefit to show where it is you got your training from and how long.
There was a student one time, they were in a, I'm trying to keep it nuanced as I say this. They were in a group
Mhm.
that had severe rules and expectations
cult.
of their members.
A cult.
And
Yeah.
It was the Twin Flames cult, wasn't
they
it?
decided that because of who we were, they could not use any of our information.
Gotcha.
That was ambiguous enough, I hope to.
It was maybe a little bit too ambiguous, but yeah, there might be some reasons why. I don't know. There could be any amount of reasons why somebody wouldn't want to disclose where they got their training done, or their amount of experience. But it really only serves to benefit you. I could see people maybe trying to overstate their experience in ways, but you always want to represent yourself as accurate as possible. 5.2, make verbal and written statements that are true and accurate about what I offer as an ICF professional and what is offered by the ICF, the coaching profession, and potential value of coaching.
Yeah, don't guarantee
Oh,
it can make you six figures.
Yeah, that's a fun one you get to see often on social media. Is you are going to make six figures in 3 months.
If
coaching
you work with
me.
me and follow my,
Yeah,
Get
like
my
you can't.
guaranteed 5-step plan to success. Like, it's not coaching. That's
Yeah.
consulting.
What you offer as an ICF professional is that you partner with them so that they can hopefully achieve their personal and professional goals. The coaching profession as a whole, they promise to work with you with integrity and in a smart way to partner with you, but they can't actually deliver the goals to you on a silver platter. That's on you as the client. And the value of coaching is mostly what you put into it as a client, although it is, I would say, also highly dependent on the coach as well and how expertly they can coach you.
Yeah.
And be a good sounding board. But they could be the best sounding board in the world. They can't force you to achieve your goals, though. That wouldn't be coaching then. And then finally, adhere to the philosophy of doing good versus avoiding bad, recognizing the impact my professional conduct has on my clients, stakeholders, and the coaching profession and society. That's just like that's a good catch-all for everything else. Because avoiding bad is a very passive way of going about your ethical duty. As long as I don't do anything harmful, then that should be good enough. Which is incorrect. You should be doing good. You need to be an active participant and trying to make the world a better place. Where I could see this going wrong, if my particular version of a better place and doing good is evil.
Oh, evil.
Yeah.
You have to do the Dr. What was his name?
Ew, evil. But it's just, a solid catch-all. You've got to try to be the best coach you can be, and represent the organization as a whole in good terms. Because the way coaches act, if they act poorly, it reflects poorly on all of us coaches. And there are whole communities dedicated to the inappropriate behavior of coaches and why coaching is, wrong. Jen, you know all about this. The life coach
I'm very
snark
familiar with this
subreddit.
community.
Yeah.
I mean,
those
it's,
are the
to me,
coaches who.
place to learn.
It's a good place to learn what not to do.
It's a real.
Ooh, she's cutting out.
Yeah.
A
Oh no,
little bit. Say it again.
To learn also the perspective that you may be up against when you encounter people who have a bias against coaching because of that experience.
Those biases are not unfounded or groundless. They are informed by actual experiences with people who call themselves coaches, and they're neither doing good nor avoiding bad. They're doing harm. And by you just avoiding bad isn't good enough sometimes.
Yeah.
And then because of all these points that are listed out nicely, 1 through 5, you have to understand that the ICF, at its discretion, according to the ECR process, can hold you accountable for violations of the Code of Ethics. And you may be subject to mandatory additional coach education, mentoring, supervision, or loss of your ICF membership and or ICF credentials. We have had people who calling us, our organization, our institute, and they're like, I know a coach and they've been acting very naughtily, very badly. What can you do about it? And we direct them to the ECR process. These people that I don't think any of them have actually been certified by us. These are people who are just calling because we're the first thing that pops up on Google. Good job, Brooke, for having us be the first thing that pops up on Google. But then they'll start to complain to us about their life coaches that they've encountered who are acting unethically, and our hands are kind of tied. For one, they're not certified by us.
Even if they
were certified. Yes, we can't disclose their information because we're still being confidential. We're being accountable to the confidentiality agreement. And if that person, said that they're, if they said that they're a coach, we can't confirm that for them. We can deny it, though. I can 100% say for a fact that this person's not a coach with us because I have no obligation to people who I've never done business to, or I don't have their information.
Right.
But if that is the case, I always point people in the direction to the ICF, because if they're a credentialed coach, then it is the ICF who is holding them accountable. And then if the ICF ever got to a point where they thought it was required that they have their ICF membership or credentials taken away, then we would also, take away their certification. Because when you join Certified Life Coach Institute, you are held by the same ethical standards. And you have to do something pretty gnarly to get your credentials taken away.
Yeah.
I don't think I've encountered anyone that gnarly before. But maybe. Fingers crossed.
Knock on wood.
And then we just have the Pledge of Ethics. You just, when fulfilling any role within the ICF ecosystem, whether that's us as a school or you as a coach in training or as an ICF member, you promise to uphold your ethical obligations and adhere to the ICF Code of Ethics in all of your professional interactions. And that's it. That's the entire Code of Ethics. Wow. We got through that in 45 minutes. I thought it was going to take us the full hour.
I thought it was going to be a little bit shorter today.
Well, I wanted to make sure we just didn't read verbatim every single code, because that would have been pretty dull and we wouldn't have gotten our commentary on it. What do we think about the changes overall?
I don't, I've been doing this for a little while. I don't see huge changes, but I think the language is becoming more clear and more precise in what they're trying to say. There's still some, when I get into the other coaching world where we all have discussions, there's still some questions on what things mean in some phases, but for the most part, holding everyone accountable for their behavior, I don't think is a bad thing, because people get confused on, who we are as a coach and what that all means.
Mm-hmm.
So I think having that clear, just like with our students, we expect you to show up, we expect you to participate, right? So having those expectations and knowing where those boundaries, it's really boundaries, are, gives an opportunity for clearer understanding for the process.
Now, this is all great for us, the coach. I'm wondering how it could benefit us. And when I say us, not just us as the Certified Life Coach Institute, I mean us as part of the entire coaching ecosystem. How can we market this better so that the people who are on the fence about coaching are aware of our ethical duties? Because from what I see, a lot of people, they aren't aware, or they think coaching is the Wild West, or really a coach is anybody who will sit down with you and have a conversation for 30 minutes to 60 minutes. What are the ways that we could be? Oh yeah, go on.
One thing is you can have it on your website. Like you can have a section on your website that talks about the professional ethics, so someone can go there and read that for themselves.
Yeah, I agree. What about
writing, a newsletter or something that will encourage the concept of what this all means?
Sure.
I think also being open to forgiveness or for learning and growing as well. Like, we don't need to, this isn't like a way for us to have a good call out culture or like to cancel coaches who aren't exactly perfect in every single regard. And I'm sure there are ethical coaches out there who are not ICF accredited as well.
Sure, of course.
But
Sure.
there's always some way that we can learn or improve. And this is just a handy, handbook or a guidebook on how to do that. This is not like a legal matter. You don't have to follow this to the law in every single interaction.
Right.
And know this backwards and forward. It's a way to guide your behavior and maybe help others, improve their behavior as well, or have at least a way of like starting a conversation as well.
Open dialogue, yeah.
Yeah, open dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
So if Jerome, starts dating his clients, there's a space where we can be like, hey, Jerome, section 4.6, have you considered that? Have you considered your ethical duty, Jerome?
I tried to.
You're not speaking too much on that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sorry, Jerome, I'm picking on you because I don't want to.
I don't even know what it is off the top of my head.
I thought it was 4.6. Maybe I'm wrong. There is no 4.6. I'll make a 4.6. It's 3.6.
Oh, 3.6.
Yeah, I mean, it's all good stuff. I personally put this and the core competencies in my notebook LM, which is the thing that I can just ask it questions and it'll provide me answers as the sources. So if you ever run into an ethical dilemma, you can ask AI to parse the information for you.
Yeah, but you got to research it too because sometimes AI doesn't have the correct information.
Well, Notebook LM will actually provide you the source where it pulled
okay.
it from, which is why that's a little bit better. But also your fellow coaches are a wealth of information.
Mhm.
Your mentor coaches, your colleagues who have their PCCs or MCCs who've been doing this for years. They're a wealth of knowledge too. And not every situation you'll ever encounter is going to be found or covered in this document. You're going to encounter probably wild and wacky scenarios that you never thought of, and then the ICF will now start to consider. Like AI was not a consideration, 4 or 5 years ago in the Code of Ethics, and now it is. There was less emphasis on technology as well, and now there's a greater emphasis on technology. So things are constantly evolving. Final thoughts on the Code of Ethics?
I'm glad we have them. I hope to never challenge them.
Or be put in a situation where you have to closely refer to them.
Yeah.
Jen, Jerome,
losing
final
Jen.
thought. She trying to speak.
Basically,
She's having trouble. Yeah.
yeah, she's having trouble with the internet. Basically, I mean, it's a great guideline to have for anyone who's looking to coach. That's the best way to put it.
Jen has no thoughts on the matter. She is speechless.
No, I
in the
do, but
face
my
of
internet
the
keeps
Code of
cutting out.
Oh,
Mm.
well, I can hear you. You're
Now
just
I
thought I would.
your face and your sound is
It's kind of
not
off.
connected. So you can just go ahead and talk. Say your final thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh,
We'll hear you.
I think it's just good to have the professional ethical framework to have as your foundation for coaching. Because if you don't have that, you're again part of the wild, wild west. Like there's no rules. You can do whatever you want. And again, I wouldn't even call them rules. They're more of guidelines, best practices, standards of practice. And at the end of the day, you decide what is right, but you have that as your foundation. So I would not feel good about coaching without it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's a movement towards doing good versus avoiding the bad.
And maybe there's a niche out there for unethical life coaches, but I think the majority of clients want to know that their coach is acting ethically and in their best interest, not in the coach's best interest.
Yeah.
So it's always helpful, and it will always benefit you to act ethically and to show that you are ethical in your practice. And with that, if you want to learn how to be an ethical coach, take Coaching 101 and 102.
And mentoring
And performance evaluation, and get your credential with ICF so you can be a validated ethical coach with a certain amount of education and coaching hours. And with that, we'll sign off, and we'll next week we'll have a different topic, a little bit more exciting topic, not so dry as the ethical code.
It could have been more dry. This was all right.
Bringing the fun back.
Yes, it will be we'll have a really fun live. I don't know on what, but it will be fun. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Take care.
See you guys.
Bye.